Bubble Guppies was a CG animated TV series for Nickelodeon following the lives of a group of merpeople and their teacher, Mr. Grouper. This show was an important part of many people's childhoods, myself included. Well, that is what I would have said, but something very, very scary happened to me recently. Back in the summer of July, I was walking around my neighborhood and saw that there was a garage sale on 71652 Butthead Street. So I went to see if there was anything cool there. When I went, it all looked like junk, apart from a CD labeled Bubble Guppies Food Chain. Being a Bubble Guppies super fan at the time, I knew that there was no food chain episode. Probably, maybe, actually, in reality, I never checked because I was lazy and I had to get this video out by Halloween. But that doesn't matter. It caught my curiosity and it was very cheap. So I bought it for $2.57. Before I left, the guy who sold it said it was haunted, but I didn't believe him because this is the same guy who told me that the blue crayon actually tasted like blueberry, and thanks to a thorough investigation, I know that's not true. After I got home, I put it in this DVD player that plays CDs, and it started to play. The video started with the intro, which seemed normal but also seemed off. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something is off about it. After the intro, the title card displayed Food Chain, which once again wasn't an episode I was familiar with. The episode started with Mr. Grouper telling everybody about the food chain. His eyes looked dead, but I assumed it was because my DVD player that plays CDs was pretty old, so I thought it was that. Mr. Grouper explained that the food chain was that bigger creatures eat smaller creatures, and even bigger creatures eat those creatures, and so on. Then Gil asked for some examples, and they made sense. Shark eats fish. Otter eats urchin, etc. But then it got weird. Mr. Grouper then said the rich eat the poor, and that the poor eat the rich. And then Mr. Grouper said that Grouper eats guppies. The video then froze and went back to normal. Mr. Grouper now had normal eyes. After a brief song number about recycling, it was time for lunch. When Molly opened her lunchbox, Bubble Puppy was inside, and he was in Hush Puppy form. He got cooked into Hush Puppies. Molly freaked out, but Mr. Grouper said it's like it should be. The Bubble Guppies are bigger and stronger than Bubble Puppy, so they are higher on the food chain. After a brief silence, Mr. Grouper said it's time for his lunch, and then stared at Nani. Nani asked what he was doing, and then Mr. Grouper aided him. Mr. Grouper was now covered in hyper-realistic blood, and he had the red eyes again. All the guppies started screaming, but Mr. Grouper told them this is just how the food chain works, and the video cut out for a minute. During this minute, I wasn't able to process what I saw, and then I processed it, and then it went back to the episode. It was now normal, excluding the absence of Nani. Mr. Grouper was now giving the Bubble Guppies questions, such as which one is higher on the food chain, lion or zebra. It was fine until Dima got a question wrong, at which Mr. Grouper told Dima to see him after class. When the Bubble Guppies went out for lunch part 2, Grouper said to Dima that she doesn't know how food chain works, and he'll help explain it. Then, Mr. Grouper ate her like Nani, and the Bubble Guppies got scared, but once again, Grouper said this was just food chain. At this point, I knew the Crayon Man was right. This episode is haunted. Over the course of the episode, each guppy was taken out one by one, and by the end there were none left and Mr. Grouper was alone. Then Mr. Grouper looked at me, like right at me, and said to me, "You think you're higher than me on the food chain, don't you?" But before I tell you what he did next, my name is Joggers here, and if you like my narration... Okay, now back to the video. Then he swam right at the camera, trying to eat at me. But right before he got to me, the video ended. I took the CD out of the DVD player that plays CDs and smashed it with a hammer, then put it in a toaster and locked it in a box and threw it in a lake. Fitting for an evil fish. To this day, that box is still there, and sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see him. The end.